Well, folks, what we have here is a 2004 9.9 Yamaha 4-stroke. It was a salvage. It came off of a sunken sailboat that was in down there around Charlestown. Only thing I have done is I pulled the plugs out and we checked to make sure that the engine was not locked up. I've already hooked up a battery to the main power cables going in. The electric starter works. So the next stage is, with any internal combustion engine, you've got to have compression, spark, and fuel for any 2 or 4-stroke. It doesn't matter. That is the most important elements that you have got to have in order to have a potentially good or running engine. So we're going to check compression. I already know we've got spark, but I'm going to show you all that as well. And then for absolutely, without a doubt, we're going to have to pull this carburetor off and give it a good cleaning. Very simple, very easy to do. And of course, I'm going to bring y'all along with every step, and we're going to see if we can get this old girl a-running. When the salvage work was done, the cables were cut. This had on the boat conventional controls, so we're missing a tiller handle. Tiller handles are not very expensive for this make and model of motor, and so we'll be installing a tiller handle. It is set up to take just a standard shift arm, and which is what we're going to pick up. You can usually pick these up for less than $20. You get the standard shifter, you know, the one looks like your finger sitting here that goes back, forward and back for forward, neutral, and reverse. And you just slide it over the linkage right here, out the grommet, where the grommet is right there, and you've got a conventionally shifting engine to go with your tiller handle. Get this. All right, folks. It's very important. I put a new spark plug in it. Maybe easier to see the fire. We got a new spark plug in it. Rachel, honey, hit the starter. Oh yeah, got fire jumping everywhere. I saw it jumping out of the bottom one too. Okay. Compression test. Compression test, bottom cylinder. Let's see if I can hit the starter button. All this at the same time. All right, looks like we got 135, which is outstanding. All right, bottom cylinder was 135. Let's see what the top cylinder is. Looks to be 130. 25, but about 132. Outstanding. 135 and 132. That is plenty enough to get it done. All right. Already taken throttle linkage loose. Moved it over, just moved it out of the way. We look to have 2 10mm nuts holding the carburetor assembly on. That's aside from your fuel lines or any vacuum lines you may have coming in. You want to disconnect all of those. You'll want to be careful and not drop these, but just in case you do, it's always a good idea to have a little pocket magnet on hand. These are small parts. And we repeat, we'll take the top one off too. Love those things. Got both bolts out. Carburetor assembly should come away. And we're gonna, looks like we got a couple of fuel lines and all that on here, but that looks like the choke solenoid was never connected to anything. All right, we're gonna finagle this thing off. It feels like we got, looks like we got the fuel line. Yeah, the fuel line is still connected to it. I'm gonna get that where I'm gonna pull that dipstick out, get where I can get to that fuel line, and we'll pull that loose and it should come free. And just like that, we disconnected the return line from the top of the fuel pump. That's that one right there. And when we did that, very simple little carburetor slipped right off. We're going to go through this and see if it's filthy. We're going to give it a good cleaning no matter what anyway. A lot of times if we're careful, we can save all these gaskets. Don't even have to worry about getting the kit if it's clean on the inside. But we're not going to know till we crack her open. That is the next step. The gaskets didn't tear. There's a spacer right there. And the gasket on the intake manifold, it stayed put and it didn't tear. So we can reuse that again, no worries. See, we got botanicals and stuff like that. We're going to have to get all cleaned out. I'm going to stuff a rag in there where that old hole is, or just put the dipstick back in there till we get ready to reinstall the carburetor. Probably be the simplest thing to do. The hose with the filter is the inlet hose. It hooked up to the bottom right here of your fuel pump. I thought that inlet hose, that may have been the one going to the carburetor. It was not. It goes around here to the fuel connector on the front. See it? It's running right there. Right down the bottom power head. We'll be replacing all of that. The hose coming out of the top of the fuel pump here was the inlet hose that actually went to the end to the top of the carburetor. Alrighty folks, how do we want to do this? Well, we really don't have to take this intake extension off. Really don't have to. I don't think we're going to have to, so we'll just start with taking the solenoid off here that we don't use anyway. This hose looks to be, it's just a vent hose from the float ball. So we're just going to start from the top and start working our way down. And that may not be a choke solenoid, it may be a fuel shutoff solenoid. Got a rubber O-ring there. We don't want anything to happen to that. It's got another rubber O-ring up under it. Not sure why. I don't know if this motor was submerged or not. I hope not. Inside where that solenoid was, looks like they had some kind of sealant on here. Don't really need it. Not with that thick O-ring up under it. Didn't need it. My guess is it didn't come with that one anyway. Okay, checking and see what in the world kind of sealant that was. But this is just a band holding this vent hose on right here. Pull that off of here. Yeah. Alrighty. The main thing what we're going to see if we got any problems is getting this float bowl off right here. And what we got here is an accelerator pump. And it looks like we've got a little C-clip right here that we're going to have to pop off. Okay, there we go. I got it. All right. That seemed to be a lot harder than it should have been. We'll pull that accelerator pump off in just a minute. Let's get the float bowl off. Okay. That did not want to break loose with the Phillips head. That don't feel good. Okay. That one. See, that one come right loose. I might be gonna have to hit the thing with some Super Zilla. That one come right loose. That one come right loose. Let me guess. These are pretty well already loose. And I got one seized up. But pardon me, fellas, if I'm trying to look to make sure that I got y'all on where y'all can see what I'm doing here. Okay, boys, I just kept rocking it back and forth before I completely eat this thing up. It looks like the bolt's coming now. I just soaked it down in PB Blaster and kept working with it. 3 of them were basically in there finger tight. This one was seized. So, welcome to working on old outboards. Okay, let's get the float bowl off of here. Oh wow, it's really, really clean, boys. I say we'll check your idle vent and your emulsifier here. You need to make sure all this stuff is wide open. Now, folks, this is brass and aluminum, and so it's good practice for me. I just soak it all down with penetrating oil. WD-40. This is the Super Zilla is some of the best stuff I've tried, but see what happened when I pulled it out of the toolbox? I can't find the top. But thank God I got other stuff. This stuff really works good. WD-40 works good. PB Blaster works great. I had one of those with the top on it. So it's PB Blaster today. Float bowl is surprisingly clean. If you look real close, you'll see it does look like some kind of sand and all that. But gasket is in really good shape. But I've got some gum out carburetor cleaner. Good stuff. And that will clean it up. I try to keep it off of me. I don't have a real good reaction whenever it hits me. I really need to be wearing gloves. But a lot of you older mechanics will understand from this old mechanic, I really like being able to feel what I'm doing, especially when I'm working on something like a carburetor with small parts. I need to be able to feel the parts whenever I'm dealing with them. And if I got on a pair of gloves, then it hampers me being able to do that. So there is a little bit of give and take there. But we're going to clean out. We're going to take the gum out here and we're going to clean out this float bowl. Sprayed it all down in here, and we'll make sure I'll get an old rag and we'll clean all that out. I'm really tickled at how clean this carburetor is. So it doesn't look like the carburetor has been submerged, which is good news. Even the little filter that's sitting in here going down to the accelerator pump is in good shape. That is actually not stain. That is That's like pitting, leaving ethanol gas in there, not running it out. That'll cause those kind of problems. If you're running ethanol gas, if you have access to non-ethanol gas, you're way better off with that. If you've got a carbureted system and you have access to avgas, aviation gas, even better, even better. I have access to aviation gas, so that's what I use in my carbureted equipment. Whenever possible, I use avgas. The float does not appear to be. We've still got the hose hooked up here. I don't like having to put my mouth on stuff like that, but we can see if the needle and seat is working. Y'all hear the air? Then hear it stop. As we lower the float, you should hear air. And when I drop the float, it should stop. And you hear it stopping. Our needle and seat is working just fine. You know, main thing I want to see if it's running. And so if I can get this jet out right here. All right. It looks to me like it was wide open. Whoa, that's tiny. I think that is also a little too tiny. Y'all may not even be able to see through that. But that is tiny. I need to find me like a wire brush or a brass brush. Better to have a steel one, because you'll pull a wire off of that steel brush and it'll be small enough to go through that jet right there to make sure that it's wide open. I may even be able to hit it with the carburetor cleaner. We'll go through the bottom side. All right, you should see the carburetor cleaner coming out the other side of it. It's open. We'll go from this side. Yep, y'all see the jet coming out of it? It's open. That's good. That's good news. I hear that going up into the throat of the carburetor, which is good. Now, the emulsifier. I'm really trying not to soak myself in this stuff, folks, because I don't react good to it. But like I said, the carburetor is really, really clean. All right. And so what I'm saying is, if you don't have to take it apart, then don't. We should have an idle air adjustment here somewhere. These folks are right here. That's going to be it right there with the brass plug. We'll need to knock that plug out so that we can take out the idle air. All right, you want to check and make sure your float is perfectly level. This one is. This one looks pretty good. And I want to back flush back through the fuel inlet, up through the needle and seat. So we're going to open the needle and seat. Yep. See the fuel coming up by the needle and seat? That's what we want to see. This carburetor was really, really pretty clean. I'm gonna go ahead, that jet is wide open, so we're gonna go ahead and install the jet. This is most important. If that jet is stopped up, she will not idle. She won't run worth a pay two at low speed. All right. All right. I'm gonna put that because we do need to. We do want to be able to access that idle air bleed screw. So I'm gonna get me a little drill bit put together, and I'm gonna show y'all how easy that is to get that factory plug out so you can access the idle air screw. Y'all stand by. Okay, boys. 1/8 inch drill bit. All right, 1/8 inch drill bit, and if you look, it looks like this plug's already kind of like it's been center drilled. Most times when I start drilling on this thing, by the time I almost get through the cap will just pop out. I'm gonna try to keep this where you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going dead center of this cap. Okay. Got through it. I see the screw, but the cap didn't pop out. Now, usually it does. Usually it does. Maybe I can just get we can get the side of the needle nose and finish popping it out of there. Well, boys, this is the 1 in 50. Usually that will pop right out. It will usually pop right out whenever you drill through it the first time. I'm gonna have to get a bigger bit, and I'm gonna have to hit it again and thin it out even more. And so, like I said, about 1 in 50 will be a pain in the butt. So now we're gonna go up to 5/32. Hope y'all can see it right there. All right. Okay, we got it that time. It wasn't that big of a deal, but it was a lot harder than it usually is. All right, now we can get to it. What we'll do is, I already got a pretty thin screwdriver here. We'll take, let me see, that flathead's not gonna get in it. I need to go get a small flathead. I've got a little thin, or a little small flathead that I use especially for carburetors. And we'll see just how many turns that Yamaha put on this thing back in 2004. Okay, let's see how many turns Yamaha put on this thing back in 04. All right, well, it's bottomed out, boys. It's completely bottomed out. You know, I have seen a few like that, but it's completely and totally bottomed out. I'm gonna take it out to clean out from under it anyway, because you never know. Just because it's bottomed out now, it don't mean that we won't have to adjust it. I can see daylight down through there. I don't know if y'all can. Hopefully you can. All right, it's wide open, and we know it was bottomed out, so I'm going right back with it. Spring fell out. We don't need that. And since it was bottomed out, I'm gonna bottom it right back out again. And you ain't gotta crank it down hard. That's it. But now we have access to it. Alrighty. Everything looks to be open here. Yeah, that's your fuel shutoff valve. What's gotten me is if this wasn't plugged up, this wasn't hooked up. If it wasn't hooked up, then I don't know if it's yeah, if it wasn't hooked up, I don't know how it would have been working. We'll check that. We'll make sure. There is a, we just got a starter button, did not have an ignition because the we saw that we already had spark. Okay, that's probably why they put that thick spacer on it right there, so that the fuel shutoff would not fully seat. All right, now that makes sense. Now that makes sense. So I had noticed that the screws are not very tight, and that's why that big old thick. It probably would have came with a cap on the one that does not require a fuel shutoff valve, but they had to augment this one. Okay. Well, heck fire. There's nothing left to do but put the float back on here, put the float bowl back on here, and see what we got.
3 types here.
Let's see. This we'll get this one. That'll work just fine. And from here, fellas, it's just reverse procedure. You see, I got a new fuel line here because that's harder to get to. It goes around here to the top of the fuel pump. The other one, I've already taken the fuel line off. I'm leaving this old line on. There's no need in me starting to really get serious about this because it needs a tiller handle, it needs a shift handle, and all that put on it. But until I hear this thing run and I'm convinced that it's worthwhile, we're not going to take that next step. But right now, we want to get this thing back together, buttoned up enough to where we can at least hear it run. Well, boys, my other motor stands are taken up. That's where I need the tiller handle from a 40 Merc right there. And I got 2 Go Devils here, 2013 and an 05 or 06. The 13 runs like a dream. It's the one that was actually on the boat when I got it. But, you know, these surface drives, Go Devil here, this model, does not have reverse. And when I'm fishing in the river, I like having reverse. I just decided that early on. So Hammer and myself only had this thing in the river 3 times, and it runs like a dream. But I'm going to be selling that. But, you know, makeshift, man, this is old school. Whenever I was a teenager and would work on outboards, we just sat them in a 55-gallon drum. That way we could fill it up to the right height so that she'll pull some water. We need to make sure it's running water. I'm going to put a new impeller in it. Anyway, what we got to find out now is if it's worth it to keep going. We've already been through all the steps. I got a new set of spark plugs for it. Let me see. Got a new set of spark plugs that I'm gonna get installed. We got good hot fire, so whenever we get enough water in this thing, we'll check and make sure we don't run it hot or anything like that. We need to make sure it's running, and if it is, we'll keep going. These little Yamahas are almost indestructible. Okay, boys, I got my sweet daughter Rachel out here to help me. She's got the fuel bulb for me. I got a new filter installed here. Go ahead, baby, give it a few pumps. Let's see if we got, because it's a 4-stroke, we ain't got to mix gas. Go ahead, keep going. Okay, it filled everything up. Till it gets tight.
Yeah.
Tight? Okay, that's it. We're good. I don't have any fuel leaking anywhere. I don't see any fuel leaking anywhere. So guys, only thing left to do is to see if she'll hit. Looking, go ahead, baby. Hit it. Are you serious? Listen to that thing, boy. No knocking. It was full of oil. The oil looked brand new. This thing was running so quiet. All we need to see is some water coming out of the telltale. I'm sure it's got a thermostat in it. I think the base idle might be down a little bit too far. Sounds good right there. Thermostat's getting warm, so okay, I'm starting to see some steam coming out of the telltale now. Well, folks, see, the thermostat was completely crudted shut. I forget to tell Rachel, I forget to bring y'all along whenever I find this stuff. The thermostat was all salted up and was stopped up. Here in the South, we don't really need a thermostat in our outboards, even when we run them in the wintertime. We really don't need a thermostat. It may help with the running some. This one does not want to come out. It is absolutely seized in there. It's trying to turn loose. Jeez Louise, man. Well, folks, I think I might be about got it. I gotta be able to pull from this way too. Whoo! Jeez. Hopefully it ain't got anything corroded up in there. All right, folks, what we did, I just back flushed it. I broke the thermostat gasket, but it'll tell me what I need to know today. Bump it, Rachel, honey. Let's see what we got. Go ahead. Hopefully. Well, folks, we're going to wrap it up with this. I'm going to order an impeller and going to get a new thermostat gasket and all that other stuff. Like I said, here in the South, we don't really need to run a thermostat in these motors. Most of them, we just take them out. But anyway, and this was probably ran in salt water, of course, down in Charleston. And so it's going to need a good flushing out. We'll do that too. Looks like we got a nice, good running little engine. It really does. If I run into any problems, I'll let y'all know. But yeah, we'll go ahead and we're going to put an impeller in it, and that should take care of the water pump problems. And then it's just a matter of cosmetic touch up and go. All righty, folks. I appreciate y'all riding along with us here. We'll see y'all on the next one. Bye-bye.